What if I told you that some of heavy metal's loudest rebels, once worshipped for their wild lifestyles and devil-may-care attitude, ended up turning their backs on it all for God? These were the legends who shook arenas with earth-shattering riffs, screamed about chaos and darkness, and lived on the edge like there was no tomorrow. But behind the noise, something deeper was stirring. Here are 15 heavy metal legends who left music for God. 15. Dave Mustaine, Megadeth. Dave Mustaine's journey is one of the most fascinating transformations in the history of heavy metal. As the founder of Megadeth, he built his name on aggressive riffs, angry lyrics, and a rebellious spirit that fueled the thrash metal movement. His career was defined by fast-paced songs, public feuds, and a lifestyle that spiraled into drugs, alcohol, and bitterness. But behind the fame, Mustaine struggled with emptiness and destructive habits. In the early 2000s, after years of addiction and turmoil, he had an experience that changed his life forever. He embraced Christianity. For someone who once wrote lyrics attacking religion, this shift shocked fans. He began openly talking about his faith, crediting it for saving his life and giving him clarity. Mustaine didn't abandon music completely, but his message changed. He cut out certain songs from live shows and became more selective with lyrics. His boldness in standing for his beliefs while still leading Megadeth showed that even the wildest thrash icon could turn toward God. 14. Nicko McBrain, Iron Maiden. Nicko McBrain, Iron Maiden's drummer since the early 1980s, is known for his thunderous playing and wild personality. Behind the scenes, though, his personal life was falling apart by the 1990s. McBrain had a reputation for heavy drinking, partying, and reckless living, a lifestyle common among touring musicians. Everything shifted when his marriage hit the rocks. At a low point, he and his wife sought guidance, which led them to a church in Florida. There, McBrain had what he described as a powerful spiritual awakening. He gave his life to Christ and began a completely different chapter. Though he remained Maiden's drummer, his outlook on life changed dramatically. He gave up his old habits and focused on living a life of faith. For fans, it was surprising to see a man who spent years behind one of the loudest, darkest-sounding bands embrace Christianity. McBrain openly talks about his faith, explaining that it gave him peace, balance, and the strength to continue playing without falling back into destructive patterns. 13. Brian Head Welch, Korn. Brian Head Welch's story is one of the most public transformations in heavy metal history. As one of Korn's founding guitarists, he lived the rock star lifestyle to the fullest: fame, wealth, drugs, and chaos. But the constant touring and addictions nearly destroyed him. Welch later admitted that he was trapped in meth and alcohol, and even though he was successful, he felt empty and hopeless. In 2005, he shocked the music world by leaving Korn to dedicate his life to God. Fans were stunned, as Korn was at the peak of its popularity, but Welch insisted that faith was the only thing that saved him and his daughter. He released Christian-inspired music and spoke openly about his new life. Years later, he rejoined Korn but stayed true to his beliefs, using his platform to share his testimony. His story became proof that someone can remain in metal while living a completely transformed life through faith, inspiring fans who also struggled with addiction. 12. Reginald Fieldie, Arvizu, Korn. Reginald Fieldie Arvizu, Korn's bassist, walked a dark road before finding God. Known for his aggressive bass slaps and unique sound, he helped shape nu metal's identity, but fame brought heavy baggage. Fieldie fell deep into alcohol, drugs, and toxic behavior, nearly destroying his relationships. His turning point came when his father, who was a devout Christian, passed away. That loss hit him harder than anything before. Fieldie began reflecting on his life and realized he needed to change. He embraced Christianity, cleaned up his lifestyle, and started sharing openly about his transformation. Unlike his wild past, he began living with discipline and faith, which surprised fans who only knew him as a reckless rocker. While he continued playing with Korn, he made sure his choices aligned with his beliefs. Fieldie even wrote a book about his struggles and spiritual journey, showing that faith helped him rebuild not only his music career, but also his family life. 11. Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper, the godfather of shock rock, built his career on horror-themed stage shows filled with snakes, guillotines, and theatrical gore. His persona terrified parents and thrilled fans, making him one of the most controversial rock stars of the 1970s. But behind the makeup and wild shows, Alice Cooper battled alcoholism and destructive living. By the 1980s, his life had nearly collapsed. What many didn't expect was that this same man would become a born-again Christian. With the support of his wife, who was also a believer, Alice turned his life around and embraced faith. He has since spoken openly about being a Christian while still performing his theatrical shows, explaining that the character Alice Cooper is just entertainment, not who he truly island. He even runs a faith-based youth center, proving his commitment goes beyond words. To this day, fans are amazed at how one of rock's darkest entertainers lives privately as a devoted man of faith. 10. Blackie Lawless, WASP. Blackie Lawless made his name as the frontman of WASP, one of the most outrageous and controversial bands of the 1980s. Their stage shows were filled with blood, raw meat, and wild stunts that fueled the era's shock rock reputation. Songs like Animal F&D, Like a Beast, cemented their image as dangerous outsiders. But years of living in excess, controversy, and constant chaos took their toll. Lawless eventually stepped back and began reflecting on his life, realizing he could not continue down that path. He turned to Christianity, a move that shocked fans who associated him with rebellion and darkness. Since then, Blackie has openly declared his faith, refusing to perform some of WASP's earlier songs that conflict with his beliefs. He still tours but presents himself differently, using his platform to honor his convictions. 9. Tom Araya, Slayer. Tom Araya's position in heavy metal history is unique. As the lead singer and bassist of Slayer, he stood at the center of one of the most extreme and controversial bands in the genre. Slayer became infamous for songs about death, war, and even satanic imagery, making them a lightning rod for critics. Yet, behind the screams and fast riffs, Araya personally held strong Catholic beliefs. Unlike many of his bandmates, he openly practiced his faith and spoke about how it guided his personal life. Fans often found it confusing. How could someone play in Slayer, yet remain devoted to God? But Araya insisted that his music was an artistic expression, not a reflection of his personal convictions. Over the years, he balanced both worlds, touring with Slayer while keeping his faith close. When the band finally retired, Araya was clear that his family and spirituality mattered more than fame. His journey shows that even in the darkest corners of metal, faith can coexist with music. 8. Chris Impellitteri. Chris Impellitteri is widely respected as one of the fastest and most technically gifted guitarists in heavy metal. His shredding style pushed boundaries, making him a hero among guitar enthusiasts. But unlike many metal stars, his path was never about excess, rebellion, or chaos. Instead, Impellitteri embraced his Christian faith early on and stayed true to it throughout his career. His band, Impellitteri, often carried subtle spiritual themes, and his personal life reflected strong convictions. While other musicians fell into destructive lifestyles, Chris kept his focus on discipline, faith, and music. Over time, his beliefs became more central to his identity, and he leaned into faith-driven projects. Though not as publicly controversial as others on this list, his decision to keep God at the center of his life made him stand out in a genre known for pushing limits. 7. Dan Spitz, Anthrax. Dan Spitz rose to fame as the lead guitarist of Anthrax, one of thrash metal's big four bands, alongside Metallica, Megadeth, and Slayer. He contributed to some of the genre's most influential records, bringing sharp riffs and technical flair. But behind the music, Spitz grew restless with the lifestyle of constant touring, heavy partying, and the darker side of the industry. After leaving Anthrax, he began searching for something deeper and more meaningful. He eventually embraced Christianity, a decision that dramatically changed his life. Rather than chasing fame, Spitz turned his focus to family and faith. Surprisingly, he even studied to become a watchmaker, mastering one of the most precise crafts in the world. For fans, his transformation was both shocking and inspiring, as it showed a man who once lived in thrash metal chaos, now choosing peace and spirituality. Dan Spitz's journey reminds many that fame and success don't always equal happiness. Sometimes the real fulfillment comes in quiet faith and purpose. 6. Michael Sweet, Stryper. Michael Sweet is best known as the lead vocalist and guitarist of Stryper, one of the most famous Christian metal bands in history. While most heavy metal bands in the 1980s embraced dark themes, rebellion, or wild excess, Stryper stood out by boldly singing about God and faith. Michael Sweet led that charge, refusing to compromise even when critics dismissed the band as a gimmick. But what makes Sweet's story remarkable is his consistency. While many musicians fell into destructive lifestyles and later found faith, Sweet built his career on staying true to his beliefs from the beginning. His dedication came with challenges. Stryper often faced ridicule in the metal world, but Michael never backed down. Over time, his music became proof that faith and heavy metal could coexist. Even after Stryper's popularity declined, he continued writing, performing, and standing firm in his convictions. For Michael Sweet, heavy metal wasn't an escape from God. It was a platform to share his faith with the world. 5. Oz Fox Stryper. Oz Fox, guitarist for Stryper, shared the same mission as his bandmate Michael Sweet to prove that faith and heavy metal could belong together. While many bands in the 1980s shocked audiences with provocative lyrics and wild stage antics, Stryper stunned fans by tossing Bibles into the crowd. Oz Fox was a central part of that bold statement, bringing shredding solos and powerful riffs to a band that never hid its message. But his story isn't just about being in a Christian band, it's about commitment. Throughout his career, Fox remained true to his beliefs, even as the band faced mockery and rejection from both religious critics and hardcore metal fans. Later in life, he battled serious health issues, which tested his strength but also deepened his faith. Through it all, he held firm to his devotion, proving that his music was always more than entertainment, it was a calling. Oz Fox represents the rare musician who never wavered from his faith, even in the spotlight of heavy metal. 4. Udo Dirkschneider, Accept, UDO. Udo Dirkschneider, the iconic frontman of Accept and later UDO, built his reputation on raw power and a commanding stage presence. His gravelly voice defined classics like Balls to the Wall and made Accept one of Germany's biggest heavy metal exports. For years, Udo lived the life that came with fame, loud tours, endless shows, and the intensity of the heavy metal lifestyle. But as he grew older, he began to step back from the chaos and reassess what truly mattered. In later interviews and appearances, fans noticed a quieter, more reflective Udo. He began speaking about his faith and personal convictions, showing a very different side from the hard-hitting singer they knew in the 1980s. While he never abandoned music completely, he redirected his life, focusing on balance, inner peace, and faith. This turn toward God surprised many who only saw him as the tough, leather-clad rocker, but it also revealed that even the hardest voices in metal sometimes find calm in spirituality. 3. Chuck Negron, Three Dog Night, Metal Collaborations. Chuck Negron is best remembered as one of the lead singers of Three Dog Night, a band more rooted in rock than pure heavy metal, but his influence crossed into the heavier side of music through collaborations and connections. During his prime, Negron's powerful voice and charisma made him a star, but behind the spotlight, he spiraled into severe drug addiction. For years, he lived recklessly, nearly losing his career, his family, and even his life. His battle with heroin became so intense that he spent long stretches in rehab, often falling back into relapse. But everything changed when he turned his life over to God. Negron credited his faith for breaking chains that addiction and fame could never fix. He began living sober, using his testimony to help others who struggled. 2. Eric Clayton, Savior Machine. Eric Clayton, frontman of the gothic and symphonic metal band Savior Machine, carved out a unique place in heavy metal. His band was never mainstream, but it built a loyal following thanks to its theatrical sound and apocalyptic themes. Clayton himself was a powerful presence, dark, dramatic, and mysterious on stage. Yet unlike many who found faith later, Clayton's journey was intertwined with Christianity from the beginning. Savior Machine's lyrics explored biblical prophecy and spiritual struggles, blending heavy metal with faith-based messages in a way few bands dared to attempt. Over time, Clayton stepped back from the spotlight, focusing more on his personal relationship with God than chasing fame. Though he returned for occasional projects, his commitment was never about being a rock star. It was about serving a higher calling. For fans, his career showed that heavy metal doesn't always have to reject faith. Sometimes it can be a vessel to explore it more deeply. 1. Ken Tamplin, Shout, Magdalene. Ken Tamplin may not have reached the same mainstream fame as some of the other heavy metal legends on this list, but his story shines just as brightly. As the frontman of bands like Shout and Magdalene, he was celebrated for his soaring vocals and his ability to fuse hard rock with powerful melodies. Unlike many metal stars who fell into the traps of fame, Tamplin made a different choice early on. He dedicated his career to faith-driven music, boldly standing apart from the excesses of the 1980s metal scene. Over time, he stepped away from pursuing commercial success to focus on ministry, teaching, and mentoring. Today, Tamplin is best known for his world-renowned vocal academy, where he trains singers from all genres. Their stories remind us that even the loudest voices can find peace in unexpected places. But what does it really mean when the gods of rock trade their fame for faith? Did they lose everything, or did they finally find what they were searching for? If you enjoyed uncovering these powerful transformations, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more hidden stories from the world of music, and share this video with someone who loves a good twist in rock history.